1949 was a year of upheaval in the East. China, the world's most populous nation, had been in political turmoil since the early 1900s. Centuries of rule by feudal emperors and warlords had failed, and a civil war had raged between the communist forces of Mao and nationalist forces of Chiang Kai-shek since 1927. Though both sides had banded together to fight the Japanese invasion, the end of World War II brought the return of civil war. Now China, the Celestial Empire, was about to change forever. The civil war in China ends with communist victory. In January, Beijing, China's historic capital, is surrendered to the communists. A social revolution in rural China has helped the party gain momentum during the war, as many peasants joined the movement because of the promise of land redistribution. With increasing communist support among the poor and decreasing support for the nationalists from the U.S., Mao Zedong's army is set to claim victory. Although the nationalists are not prepared to surrender, when peace talks break down, the Communist Army crosses the Yangtze River virtually unopposed, prepared to take Nanking, Hankow, and Shanghai.
Nanking, capital of China, nervously awaits the Communist Army encamped only 10 miles outside the city. Only Chiang Kai-shek's successor, acting President Lai Ching-yen, and Chu Chang-wei, his chief advisor, remain in the city to represent the government. Their mission is to seek peace with the communists, acknowledged victors in the 22-year-old civil war. In the beleaguered city itself, the feeling runs high in favor of unconditional surrender.
Eventually, the communists take over all of mainland China. Only the islands of Hainan, Taiwan, and a few scattered areas are still in nationalist hands.
5 months ago, the troops of Mao Zedong marched into Shanghai unopposed. That victory was celebrated in July at a gigantic parade in what is today the largest red city in the world, now so isolated that these pictures took 3 months to reach Britain. In those 3 months, the Reds have changed the face of China and brought the world's largest country within the Communist Empire.
On October 1st, Mao Zedong establishes the People's Republic of China. Though the largest population in the world was now under Mao's leadership, the United States and the West continued to recognize only Chiang Kai-shek and his forces as the legitimate government of China. It would be 2 decades before America formally acknowledged the People's Republic of China. By that time, the defeated and desperate nationalist forces had transformed their tiny final stronghold of Taiwan into an economic powerhouse that could easily compete with any of the countries of the Pacific Rim. World War II finally ended in 1945 with hopes for a lasting peace. But a new type of war, a Cold War, would drag on for decades. Although the newly formed United Nations would have a great impact on international relations, it would not be able to prevent war. In the 1950s, the battlefront would merely shift from Europe to Asia. The bloody Korean War would rage for several years, and the first rumblings of trouble would be felt in a place called Vietnam. With communism spreading across the globe and paranoia sweeping America, the gripping decade of the 1950s began.